Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Let's see if it's posting now. Good morning. Good morning. There we go. There we go. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We are at Project Life where we turn theory into practice. I thank you all for your patience. I'm going to get this tech stuff right. So today, listen, we are talking about um, patterns. It's Energy Audit Thursday, you guys. Stop repeating the old patterns and start creating new ones. Listen, hello and good morning. Let's take our breath together, right? This is our time, right? No pressure, no judgment, right? Just presence. We've already done what we needed to do for ourselves this morning. Set our intentions for our personal life. Now we are on to community, right? Where we connect together as a community, right? So let's take our breath, feel our feet on the floor. Let's get inside our bodies. All right. Okay. Because you're at Project Life, right? Well, we turn theory into practice. We turn theory into practice. And what does that mean? That just means like we hear a lot of theory things, right? What we should do, what we shouldn't do, right? We hear that stuff. But how do we make that practical, right? How do we digest that in a way where we understand it enough to motivate us? This week we're talking about motivation from the Lemons framework. Remember the Lemons condition? We lack the energy, the motivation, the organizational skills, and necessary supports to really transform our life, not really change our circumstances on the outside. Because a lot of us has gotten up, moved, we've changed relationships, we've changed jobs, right? We've done a lot of changing in our life, but have we truly transformed? And that is an inside job. So the whole idea is to turn this theory into practice. Is really helping you to have these daily conversations with me in the Elevating Life group, in the membership, right? Getting your workbooks so that we can what? So that we can start practicing, right? The thing that we want to become. I think about doctors, and you always have a doctor practice, right? Because a doctor is not an expert. As a therapist, I'm not an expert, right? We're practicing so that we can get better. And the more competent we become in our life, the more confident we become with ourselves. And so, um, and so that is my spiel this morning. Hey, why don't you drop a word in the chat for me? One word. Before we dive into today's session, drop one word in the chat that describes how you're feeling today. I'm going to say accomplished. I don't know if you guys saw me pop on, um, but it didn't go through. And so I had to go back and set up everything. And it is the third week of Project Life. And so I'm feeling accomplished this morning. How are you guys feeling? Drop it in the chat for me. Um, Thank you. All right. So I just want to welcome you back. This week we've been uncovering the habits that really make us sabotage our life, right? Sabotage our motivation, and we've been replacing that with discoveries really about how do I fuel my motivation so that I can grow, right? Because here's the truth: motivation doesn't just appear, right? It's built through these daily patterns that we develop. Toto says she's well rested. Me too, Toto. If we want different results, guess what? We have to do what? Different habits, right? Because the mind is just so beautiful. This body is just so beautiful, and I really hope that by the end of this year, you will start to love yourself and see yourself as an amazing being. Because we don't have to do much, right? Like our heart is beating, our lungs are working. Anything that needs to happen for us, a big part of it is already stored within the the DNA strands, within the molecules, within the brain cells and the neurons, right? So, but first we build our habits and then our habits make us. And if we want to be different, then we have to break some of these old habits or replace some of these old habits. And listen, sometimes your habits are not even habits of yours, right? Right. Dale said, "Good morning, vibes, Dr. Little." Good morning, Dale. Sometimes your habits ain't even yours, right? You picked up habits from your grandma, your mother, your father, whatever the environment in that you were in prior or when you were a child, right? And so you're doing things today that you were taught how to do or that you caught, right? And then we become adults. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you where you kind of like, man, I sound like my mama saying that, or I sound like my grandma, right? Because you've developed a way of being because that was taught to you. But as adults, we have the power to really shift and change, right? And start to put in manually, right? Take ourselves off of autopilot and start to do things manually so that we can get the what? The motivation that we need. So we started this week by exploring the stories that we tell ourselves about motivation, right? Whether we believe we're capable, whether we think we need to wait for the right moment, right? Whether we should tie our worth to our productivity, because a lot of us have stories about our productivity. I'm worthy if I make this amount of money. I'm worthy if I hold this title, right? And these stories we've internalized really shape our actions. So if we're stuck, it's because we've been telling ourselves a story that is keeping us stuck, right? I never meet good people. I can't trust anyone. I don't have the energy for that, right? All of those little stories, they build up in your brain. Is like an unconscious, it's the most unconditional, I'm going to say like unconditional part of you. And so it's not hearing you say what you don't want. It's not hearing you say what you do want. It's taking the data. It's just listening, and it doesn't hear negative. So everything that you're saying, right, to your brain is affirming. And a lot of us are saying what we don't want, what we don't want, what we don't want. And the truth of the matter is we need to start giving our brain more mental images and more language around the things that we do want, right? And then the things that we do want, we need to we have to shift how what is the intention under that thing? Am I tying that to my worth? Is it draining me, right? A lot of us say like people is draining, social media is draining, all of that. And guess what? It just really makes it more draining because you're training your mind to think that way. On Tuesday, we then we looked at the triggers, right, that activate from our fears, right? Because a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves are fear based, right? I want to be productive because I'm in this duty paradigm where I feel like I should be doing stuff. So I have some perfectionism. I have some fear of failures, right? I have some fears of success, right? So sometimes these narrative or these stories we tell ourselves really trigger these fears. And if we then condition to believe that we have to be perfect before we start, then any mistake or any challenge just triggers this self-doubt, right? This insecurity within us, making us freeze instead of take action. And then yesterday was a great conversation because we talked about how obstacles aren't proof that we should stop, right? They're roadmaps. They're really like these green lights to say, hey, this is an opportunity for you to what? Do something different. This is an opportunity for you to what? Build a new skill. This is an opportunity for you to do what? Take a different direction, do something different, right? Because if you want a different outcome, at some point you're going to have to see this obstacle or this moment as a moment where you can insert new behavior here, right? And so the way we react to our setbacks really determine whether we stay stuck or whether we grow through a challenge. All right. So today we're talking about patterns. And patterns are the key, right, to our consistency. If you guys remember the format of the week, right, we talk about anything that I'm talking about, we're breaking it down into this process so it can become what? So I can process it mentally and so I can digest it, right, emotionally. And so we're using the Stop It, which is a framework, right? The trademark framework throughout the week. So today we're talking about the P in Stop It, which is patterns. So here it comes. So here is where everything comes together, right? So our daily patterns really determine whether we are reinforcing our old stories, reacting to our triggers, and like our daily patterns determine whether we reinforce old stories, react to our triggers, or let obstacles stop us, all right? Or if we can create these new habits, right, that allow us to grow, to move forward, and to build real momentum. The whole idea around the STOP acronym, right, was that because of these stories we tell ourselves, the triggers that come up, the obstacles that present, we create a pattern in our life, and we ask ourselves, why does this keep happening to me? Because you've done it so long that now it's a pattern, right? And you don't even have to think about it. Like, you're attracting those type of individuals, you're attracting those type of circumstances and conditions because it's a pattern now. All right. And so today we want to get some information on how to stop that. So think about someone who's trying to get healthier, right? So maybe they told themselves a story that I'm just not that of a disciplined person, right? Because of that, every time they feel tired or stressed, right, their trigger response is to reach for comfort food or to skip their workout that day. Eventually, they step onto the scale and they don't see the progress that they wanted to see, and they feel discouraged, right? And think, why even bother? That becomes their obstacle, and then that cycle repeats because their daily patterns reinforce this doubt and this fear. But what if instead of defaulting to the old pattern, they made small intentional changes, right? Instead of all or nothing thinking, they focused on the small wins, like, I'm gonna drink. I'm gonna start drinking more water, right? I'm just gonna walk for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? Over time, these small shifts will create the momentum, right, or the energy, and suddenly they don't have to rely on motivation anymore because it's just who they are. Okay, so when we just start to do the small things, and this is a shift that we really have to make, right? We have to stop thinking about these big changes, right? These big things, and it's like the small things. Even I don't care when you're eating food, you have to break that food down in your mouth, right, into smaller pieces so that you can digest it, right? Life is created in these smaller cells, right, that come together and create bigger cells. We are a conglomerate, I'm sorry, of what, 700, more than 750 billion cells, right? And some of the cells gather together to make our skin, and some of the cells gather together to make our heart, and some of the cells gather together, right, to make our brain. But nevertheless, it's thousands and millions of cells, small cells, that's doing that. All right. And so when we thinking about these mental shifts or these mindset shifts, it just don't happen in one big go, right? It happens over time by these little small steps. But some of us has told a story, right, that it's too late. It's too late to save the money that I wanted to save. It's too late to have the relationship that I want to have. It's too late to go get the education that I want to get. And that's just a lie. And when you tell yourself that story, now you are ciphering the motivation that is required in the beginning for you to have the life that you want or to do the thing that you want, because you've told yourself this is one of those stories that steals our motivation. I'm too old, it's too late, you know um I'm past my time, right? These are just not true, right? You can start off right now, and I always tell my clients, like, we overestimate. I learned this from Brian Burchard. He said we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we underestimate what can be done in 3 years. We overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, right? But we underestimate what can be accomplished in 3 years. And I just have to pose this question to you guys. What if in 3 years your life was totally different. Your bank account looked different. Your relationships look different, right? How you showed up in your body looked different. How you feel in your body looked different, right? It's going to happen before the 3 years. But what if you knew for sure in 3 years that that would happen? Would you be willing to take one small step? Because in 3 years, either I can be the same person I am today, 3 years from now, or I can be 160 degrees different, which is like totally different and closer to the person that I feel like I was created to be. Right. So if you're feeling unmotivated, it's not because you're not capable. It's because your daily patterns are keeping you stuck. But today we're going to shift. But today we're shifting that by building habits that work for you and not against you. I want to tell you a story about a client that I was working with, and I told her that the 1 year and 3 years. Year one, my client was sleeping on the couch at her friend's house. She didn't have a car. She didn't have her children. She wasn't in a relationship. And I said, well, let's give ourselves 3 years. I'm going to do a 3-year plan with you. My client is about to buy a house. She owns her car. She has a stable job. She has her children back. They live with her, right? She's emotional now because this was an idea that she never in a million years thought that she would be able to create for herself. But just me holding that space for her and being a conduit of a resource for her and encouraging her and allowing her to see, like, and being that motivation, like little by little, things started to shift. Right now, 3 years later, she still has goals and aspirations. Like, that doesn't stop. But the fact that she's not on the couch and she's about to buy a house and she's has her kids, like, these were things that she never thought were possible, but they were possible because she created a plan. All right. So let's drop a fire in the chat if you're ready to create new patterns to fuel your success, right? All right. So here is our powerful quote for the day. This is by Tony Robbins. If you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always had. It's actually gotten. If you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always gotten, right? Think about that for a second. How often do we feel stuck, unmotivated, frustrated, but we keep repeating the same cycles over and over again? Today we're talking about breaking these cycles, you guys, because if you want a different outcome, you need a different approach. Another way I'm going to say this is that we keep telling the same story about the people that's coming into our life, right? We're breaking up with people. We're breaking up with our friendships. We're losing our jobs or leaving our jobs, right? And if you notice, it's the same story. My boss is an asshole. People don't know how to respect me. They don't trust, right? You're saying the same thing about everybody or every situation you're encountering, right? So at some point, it might just be you. And this is not a good or bad thing. And I'm not calling you good or bad, but I'm saying, hey, it may be a pattern that you develop where now you're attracting this type of situation and these type of circumstances. And so let's break that, right? So you can get the energy and the motivation that you need and that you desire for your days, for your moments, for your weeks, for your years, right? It's there. We just have to access it. All right. So why breaking patterns is the key to motivation. Your patterns, the things you do daily without even thinking, are shaping your life, you guys. The question is, are they helping you or are they holding you back? If you've been struggling with motivation, it's not because of a lack of discipline. It's not because of a lack of discipline. It's because your habits are wiring you for your comfort zone. But today we're going to change that. I just want you to know that anything we doing because we want to do it. Everything that you doing today, it ain't because of a lack of discipline. It ain't because you got a lack of focus. It ain't because you lack anything. Your attention is on the things that you want your attention to be on. Okay? So if you've been struggling with motivation, it's not because of this lack of discipline. It's because your habits are wired for your comfort zone. And we just have to unwire that because to change is going to be uncomfortable. And because our brain, our survival mode, wants to be comfortable, right? It's going to fight that change. I always hear when I go to these conferences, I always hear like other races in majority, our Caucasian races, white people. They'll talk about like this reptilian brain and like back in the caveman times where they used to have saber-toothed tigers, like they used to be so scared, right? Because and they had to create, or what created in the brain was this survival brain, right? And so we're wired for fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? And every time I hear that story, I'm like, y'all talking about caveman time, right? Like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Now, if we place that same type of story over the diaspora of African American individuals or individuals of color or minority group, we have within the last 300 years, right? I, I know my grandmother who was a slave who saw lynching, right? She talked about that in my house. So our survival mechanism and our need to feel comfortable is a little bit higher, right? Or a little more instinctive, because what? We're wired to just not even 3 or 4 generations back, right? And because stuff passed down through epigenetics, right? We can feel that. And sometimes this fear and anxiety is not even ours, right? It's not even ours. It's our ancestors that now I'm scared and I feel like this thing is like a present danger for me. That feeling is real in our bodies, but sometimes it's not ours. So that's why we have to go into manual, be willing to get out our comfort zone, because we're safe today. You safe. You can change, right? We don't have the same conditions. All right. So motivation really isn't about willpower, you guys. It's about our habits. If you consistently feel stuck, drained, or unmotivated, it's because your patterns are reinforcing your current state. The key to lasting motivation really isn't about pushing harder. It's about building better habits for you. Okay. So what this means is that if you keep repeating the same routine every day, right, you'll keep getting the same results. If you keep telling yourself the same story about your life, you're going to continue to experience that same life and experience those same triggers. If you keep telling yourself the same story about the person you're with, your mate, your mother, your daddy, your sister, your brothers, right? If you keep telling yourself that, then guess what? You're going to keep seeing that. So if you want to see something different, you have to show up different. Like Gandhi said, you have to be the change that you want to see in the world. All right. But the good news is in all of this that small shifts in daily habits lead to massive transformation over time. Right? You don't have to stay stuck in old cycles. You are not your past. You are not your old patterns. You have the power to reset, realign, and create new habits that support your growth when today. Put a one in the chat if that makes sense. Put a one in the chat if that makes sense. Okay? Right? You do not have to, you are not your past. You are not your old patterns. You have the power to reset and realign today and create new habits to support your growth today. Like imagine waking up, you guys, feeling energized and clear on your goals. Not because of motivation, but because you built habits that make taking action feel natural. Imagine no longer battling the same obstacles over and over and over again, but actually seeing progress, right? That's what happens when you break old patterns and create new ones. I, I like this. I like this analogy. When you first moved into the house that you live in right now, you didn't know what a light switch was. You didn't know like where some plugs were in your house, right? Like you feeling around, you scared, I ain't gonna say scared, but it's a little fearful, right? But now you can walk through your house in the dark. Your hand is gonna naturally turn on the dining room light, cut off the kitchen light, right? So many steps to the bathroom, you gonna turn, right? Why is that? Because your mind has built a mental map of the layout of your house, and now you don't have to think to do the thing that you once had to think to do. And that is where that's the third thing. So we want to run away from pain, run away from our pain, run towards our pleasure, and conserve energy. That is the motivational triad. Run away from our pain, run towards pleasure, or conserve energy. So when we build habits, right, guess what? Not doing that thing is going to cause me pain, right? So I'm going to build habits around the things that I like to do so that I'm motivated or inspired from the inside, right? To do this thing. And then I'm going to conserve energy. So my mind wants to conserve energy. That's why we build habits, because they don't want to use the mental bandwidth. A lot of us don't want to talk about new things. We don't want to grow. We don't want to have deep conversations. Why? Because that's mental. That's mental energy, man. You making me think. You making me think about stuff that I just don't want to think about. A big part of doing Project Life in the mornings is because we have more mental energy. We're open. I have more energy to sit and listen to you, Sheila. Because if you did this at 9 o'clock, yeah, good information. I'm gonna check you later. But in the mornings, you guys, when we set our intention, it's like winter, spring, summer, fall, right? We wake up on spring, right? We go into summer in the middle of our day. We tend to fall, right? Go into our fall season about around evening. And after a certain time, we in winter. That is definitely a man cycle, but that is also a brain cycle too. Women, we do that through the week. So 1 week we're in spring, 1 week we're in summer, 1 week we're in fall, and then 1 week we're in winter, which is why some weeks we're more motivated and inspired, and some weeks we just want to lay around, right? Because our cycle goes through the month. But men wake up on spring, right? Anything they need to get done, they're going to do it in the morning, right? And by the nighttime, it's like, listen, I don't want to talk about that. I'm tired, right? But that applies to human behavior too. Put a 2 in the chat if that makes sense. Okay. Let me tell you, one of my clients used to struggle with feeling overwhelmed every morning. She hit the snooze button, rushed through her day, and fell behind before noon, right? But once she changed one pattern, getting up 15 minutes early to set an intention, her entire day shifted. Her motivation increased, her focus improved, and she finally felt in control of her time. This was one small change that led to like a massive transformation. There was also a study done at Duke University that found that 45% of our daily actions are habitual, okay? Which means nearly half of what we do happens automatically. So if we want to change our life, the key isn't fighting for motivation, you guys. It's rewiring our habits so that we can conserve this energy and so that success can become effortlessly. So when we're seeing these people talk about, oh, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I eat, only this, I do that. At this point, it's effortless from them. And you looking at them like, how? How can you do that? That's a lot of energy. Yeah, it's a lot of energy for you because you haven't done it enough. Okay? Because you haven't done it. But as soon as you start to do it, the sooner your mind would make that effortless. I remember I used to get out the bed. I never made my bed up when I got out of it. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make it up. I'm gonna get right back in it. So, but then I got into a relationship with an individual that was very much organized, right? And so much so that they would just fold their clothes, hang their clothes up. Like, it just really was a mental shift for me. But being in that environment for that time that I was with that individual, I mean, I just developed some very good habits that I had paid people to come to my house. Like, teach me how to be organized. Like, how do I teach me how to grocery shop? Like, it was these skills that I just didn't have, right? And I would pay like my auntie to come over, or, you know, nannies to come in, housekeepers to come in to really help me to rewire my brain in a way where my day flowed a little more easier. And when I got into that relationship and I saw first like what it looked like, and then I started to do it, once that relationship dissolved, like I had these habits. So now getting out my bed, it's frustrating if I see my bed like not made up, right? It's times it's not, but it bothers me. So I need to go do that. If the clothes stay in the basket too long, like I need to go and fold those clothes. It bothers me now, right? Because I have rewired my mind to think that's a problem, and like it's a problem to not do the thing now. All right. So your life is a reflection of your daily habits. I want you to think about one old pattern you're ready to break, and what's one new habit that you're willing to start, right? And if you can, drop that in the chat. And if that made sense, put a three, right? A three in the comments for me. Okay. So now let's go into our biblical wisdom. Remember, I like to use biblical wisdom, not because of religion, because the truth is I don't practice religion, right? I believe that the Bible, and I heard a guy say this, I believe that the Bible is a book of promises, principles, parables, and promises. And if I can use a quote, right, I can use a scripture off the Bible. And this Bible is one of the oldest books alive, right? And it was inspired, right? So these words were inspired, and I know that feeling of being inspired because I was inspired to create what the lemonade framework. I was inspired to make the stop and now framework. I was inspired to create the limits condition. I was inspired to do bracts to bones, right? I was inspired when I'm working with a client and I'm hearing this voice in my head saying, say this, do that. And so I believe that the creator inspires us all. And I have aligned myself in such a way where, like the post that I posted in the group, if you guys haven't watched it, like I've dug so deep that I feel this resource. I'm not your resource, right? But I've dug deep enough to tell you how to dig deep enough so that your will can feel, right? So the promise, so the principle, right? A principle is just a guide, right? It's kind of like a rule, right? That we guide by, and the reason why principles are important because a lot of us don't understand what our personal standards are. We haven't developed that personal standard for ourselves. We haven't developed our personal values, and that's okay, right? So let's insert this one until you develop one, or you can just use this one, right? So this one says, do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be ye transformed for the renewing of your mind. That's Romans 12:2, right? What this means is that transformation starts with breaking old molds, right? If we keep following society's patterns of burnout, comparison, self-doubt, what somebody else's relationship looked like, what my mom and daddy did, what my mom and daddy didn't do, right? We stay stuck. We don't just change by willpower, we change by renewing our mindset, you guys, and being intentional about our daily choices, right? And so we talked about those paradigms, which are mindset shifts, moving from this victim mindset, from this duty mindset, from this achievement mindset to really one of growth and integrity, right? Where I'm going with the ebb and flow of life because guess what? Life is here to teach me. Okay. Our promise, our promise is the same promise we had last week, right? The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in the sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. What does this mean? God doesn't want us running on empty, you guys. The source that created us put so many things in our brain. Like our brain literally creates dopamine, right? To what? To make us feel euphoric. I mean, we have orgasms, right? Why? So that we can connect, so that we can connect to one another, so we can have this desire to connect. So the creator didn't want us to not have motivation. There's things in us when we get massages, when we get rubbed, when we get hugs, we get this euphoric feeling, right? This connection. So God didn't create us to run on empty, right? He wants us to thrive, and we were designed by that. We was designed to do that. We have taste buds on your tongue right now. You have a salt part, a sweet part, a hot, a cold, right? We have we can smell, right? These senses, and some smells like trigger our brains, right? So all of these different nuances about us, we need to know that the creator don't want me to feel drab about my life. It's so many small things that were put in place intentionally so that I can feel good about who I am and whose I am. So when we align with new patterns that prioritize growth and well-being, guess what? We are renewed and strengthened. We're not meant to stay in a cycle of burnout and doubt and confusion and feeling unloved and unworthy, right? We're not even meant to stay in those cycles. We end up in those cycles, and a lot of times we end up in those cycles because guess what? The people before us was in those cycles, and the people before us was in those cycles, right? But we can take the first step though to with clarity and energy. When we take the first step, guess what? Clarity and energy will follow. Okay. So breaking patterns isn't about willpower. It's about alignment. It's about alignment. And when you create habits that serve you, you step into a flow that fuels your motivation naturally. And that natural flow is inspiring. It makes me, at that point, I'm ripened. I can give you love. I can give you the compliment. I can let you be you, right? I can let you say and feel how you want to feel. Because guess what? I have the energy. I'm tapped in. And that's what alignment is. I'm tapped into a source that's bigger than me. So I don't have to carry the weight of the world on me. I don't have to be everything to everybody. I don't have to say or figure out how to do the thing because I'm blossoming. And as I'm blossoming and as I'm growing, my fragrance is filling the room, right? And if you don't like that fragrance, that's fine. I still love you, right? Okay. So how does these two scriptures really tie into motivation and patterns? Listen, Romans 12:2, which is do not conform to the patterns of the world. Listen, motivation starts by renewing your mind. This verse tells us that lasting change doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from shifting how we think. If we're stuck in cycles of procrastination, self-doubt, and perfectionism, it's because we've been conditioned, you guys, to think a certain way. Okay. If we stuck, yes, amen, Dewana. If we're stuck in cycles of procrastination, self-doubt, and perfectionism, it's because we've been conditioned to think that way. Society has taught us that to hustle, to seek validation from others, to compare ourselves to the best relationship, right? To equate our worth to our productivity. But listen, when we let go of these false beliefs and renew our mindset, we break free from these patterns that really drain us. The practical application of this is instead of thinking, I will start when I feel motivated, right? Start saying, I'll build habits that fuel my motivation. Let me say that again. Instead of saying, I'll start when I feel motivated, start saying, I'm going to build habits that fuel my motivation, right? Because motivation isn't about waiting for the right feeling. It's about training your mind to act despite the feeling. Breaking old patterns, you guys, it requires us to stop conforming to what hasn't worked and choose new ways of thinking that empowers us. All right. So the old pattern is I'm just not a morning person, right? The new thought is I can create a morning routine that works for me. All right. So instead of hitting the snooze button, I'm going to start waking up 10 minutes early and stretching, right? I did this because especially as an entrepreneur, we get so much information like the 5 o'clock morning, the 6 o'clock morning. If you get up by 8, you already behind 100 people, like with thousands of people, right? And so you're trying to conform to this standard that you're hearing other people say and do. And a lot of my clients do that too. And I'm like, man, I'm just not a morning person. I'm just not a morning person. And then I told myself one day, I can create the morning routine that works best for me. Okay. So I'm going to get up. I'm going to take my time. And I used to have a thing where I don't even talk to people to 12. Like I do all my business. I send my emails, but up until 12 o'clock, it's my time. And then once I did that, I started to introduce this year the Project L.I.F E. Like, okay, I can go into community after 8. But from 6:15, I can lay around, I can talk to God, I can do my affirmations. By 7:15, I'm out the house, taking my son to school. I'm back at the house at 8. Now I'm setting up for this. But I've done all my stuff, right? And that's my morning routine. Okay. And this also fits for you. You don't have to mirror what somebody else is saying, right? So this is the trigger. When you feel stuck, ask yourself, am I thinking the same way that I always have been thinking? If so, it's time to renew your mindset. So when you're triggered to say something that you've always said or do something that you've always done and you don't like it, it's uncomfortable, like you've come comfortably complacent, right? I'm comfortably uncomfortable, right? Ask yourself, am I thinking? Am I thinking the way I've always thought about this? And then renew your mind. And then Isaiah 58, you guys, in 58 and 11, new patterns, which was the Lord will guide you always. Okay, he will satisfy your needs. Okay, I want you to think about this. This verse reminds us when we commit to new habits, then align with our well-being, we will be strengthened and sustained because it's already in us by design. Again, we think about this God up in the heavens that we're praying to change our life. And God has already given you everything you need, right? It's certain things that you can do right now that will release dopamine into your body that will make you excited, right? It's certain things that you can do right now to start shifting and aligning yourself, right? So this verse reminds us that when we commit to new habits that align with our well-being, our spiritual self, our emotional person, our goals and our desires, right? We will be strengthened and sustained. So if we're stuck in this cycle of burnout, overthinking, and inconsistency, it's not because we're weak, you guys. No, it's not. It's because our patterns haven't supported our growth. All right. So when we create habits that nourish us, we don't have to force motivation. It will naturally flow. All right. So the practical application for motivation, sustainable motivation comes from aligned habits, right? When you stop repeating the same draining patterns, your energy will return to you. When you start choosing habits that align with your goals, you don't have to push yourself. You feel pulled to do that thing. All right. So if you're drained or unmotivated, ask yourself, am I following patterns that strengthen me or drain me? All right. If it's the latter, it's time to shift. All right. So let's make this even more practical, which is shifting from this external God creator to this internal power of source that was given to us. Okay, the old way of thinking would have been God, give me the motivation to change my life. God inspire me. Okay. The new way of this is God has already given me the wisdom and the strength to shift my patterns. I just need to align with that. God has already done what He's gonna do. I just need to align with that, right? So instead of wait for God to force our change, we recognize that He's already equipped us, you guys, with the ability to renew our minds. Instead of praying for energy, we shift into habits that will naturally create the energy because the resource is already there. Instead of feeling lost, you guys, we trust that when we take the first step, clarity and strength will follow. All right. All right. And then another one is, God, I don't feel motivated. Please give me the energy. I don't know if y'all done these prayers before, but these are real for me, right? And really changing and saying, God, I trust that as I make better choices, guess what's gonna happen? My strength will be renewed. Okay. God, I just trust this as I make better decisions for myself as your child and your children. Guess what? My strength, my love will be renewed. Okay. My joy will be renewed. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just drop a heart in the chat for me. Because motivation isn't about waiting for the right moment, you guys. It's about aligning our habits that sustain us. So Romans 12:2 reminds us that motivation starts in our mind. And then Isaiah 58:11 reassures us that when we align with what strengthens us, motivation and energy, listen, naturally flows. All right. So the next time you feel unmotivated, don't ask, why don't I feel like doing this? Ask, what pattern do I need to shift to make this feel easier? Why don't I feel like doing this? Listen, what pattern do I need to shift to make this feel easier? All right. What's one daily habit that's draining you right now? And what's one small shift you can make to change that? All right. So that is our transformational two. Just this one small shift. I want you guys to write down one negative pattern right now, or one contracted pattern um, that you're ready to break. Right, and now write down one small shift that you can make today to start what, creating a new habit. All right. In this, what this looks like, for example, is the old pattern is checking, social media first thing in the morning. A lot of us, a lot, a lot of, I want to say this. I'm not saying don't check social media in the morning, but if you have a story that you shouldn't be checking social media in the morning, right? Then that's the problem. Okay. So checking social media, first thing in the morning. Listen, I'm going to spend my first 5 minutes journaling and setting a daily intention, right? These big changes, listen, big changes really start with small shifts. So if you want different results, guess what? You need different habits. If you want different results, you guys, you need different habits. And again, this is why Project L.I.F.E is here, $47 a month. If this week's conversation really helped and assisted you, and you want to get coached more on the things that were talked about today, listen, click that link in the comments, and just, we do weekly coaching on whatever that theme is this week for in our growth membership, right? Where we can talk about this, and it's more of a lab, right? So we're actually working through and allowing you to move from, okay, information to implementation. And that is the power of Project L.I.F E, you guys, because we have the membership portal, which is the resources, this daily intention life lessons, right? If you're a member for that, it's like $19.99. You get the workbook. You also get access to a lot of resources on the back end in the membership portal. For $47.99, though, you get the lab. And what is the lab? That's where we sit and we talk and we help you as an individual, as a unique individual, like practice, right? Practice what you're doing, right? So I'm moving from information to implementation. And then we have the legacy, right? And that's where we're learning emotional intelligence and really applying new information. And so the whole skill of Project L.I.F.E is to truly help you to turn theory into practice, right? Right. And so I hope that made sense today. Listen, let's go for our affirmation today as we wind up our session. Okay. So remember, affirmation is a space that we're affirming together. Okay. It's a positive space. It's a space that we are affirming as true for us, right? Even if it's not, we're going to affirm that it's true. So I am not bound by my past. I want to hear you say it. I am not bound by my past. I create new patterns that support my growth. My habits align with my highest best self. My habits align with my highest best self. Okay. The daily intention today, again, attention is just the roadmap for today, right? So when I come up on a obstacle or I feel unmotivated, I'm going to remind myself of this intention that I said this morning, right? Which is, today I choose to break old cycles and build habits that serve my future. My future is not just me, it's the legacy that I'm building too. All right. If today's session resonated with you, listen, drop a fire in the chat. So let's celebrate our growth together. And remember, you guys, if you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. And if you're ready to break old cycles, build new habits, fuel your success, come on over to Project L.I.F E, where we turn theory into practice, and we make this practice a lifestyle. There's take one, your bonus challenge today is just to take one old habit you're breaking Write it down and replace. Like, take one old habit you're breaking and write a replacement habit for it. Then share it. Share it in the chat for me. All right. All right. And I want to tell you guys why I use these verses again. Romans 12:2 is a principal verse, really reminding us that transformation comes from breaking free of old patterns and renewing our mindset. Because the same mind that created the problem, listen, can't be the same mind, right? That solves it. All right. And Isaiah 58:11 just reassures us that when we align with healthier habits, right, we tap into a resource that we already have, and we will be strengthened and renewed. I gave this analogy last night to probably my dad. You know, you living in a house right now, and it's over an oil mine, right? And one day you in the backyard and you digging up and you hit oil, and you think to yourself, "Oh my God, I'm rich now." No, you always been rich, right? That oil has always been there. You just decided to go tap in. You just decided to dig deep enough to see what riches lie beneath you, right? And that is how it is with us as individuals. You're already enough. You're already beautifully and wonderfully made. You already have everything you need, right? And when you tap into that, you will start to realize it in real time. But it's always been there. It's always been there. So if motivation has felt like a struggle, it's not. It's your patterns, right? If love has felt like a struggle, it's not. It's your patterns, right? If self-worth has felt like a struggle, it's not. It's your patterns, okay? So when we shift our daily habits, right, how we talk, how we think, right, how we move, motivation, you guys, flows naturally. I love you, okay? And I will see you tomorrow when we start talking about this inner critic, honey. All right? I'll see you there. I love you. Till later.